Happy Tuesday and a very warm welcome to Africa. Good morning. Now we are excited to be bringing you the news making headlines from now until 8 a.m. My name is Aina Raiza Koyo and alongside me is Eshwan Berry.
And today is Franchise Appreciation Day. Franchises allow businesses and business-minded people to set up and run their very own business with all the support and purchasing energy of the established brand. For customers worldwide, National Franchise Appreciation Day serves as a reminder to support local franchise businesses within our communities. For those whose careers revolve around franchising, both franchisors and franchisees, you likely find yourselves feeling especially grateful on this day now that you found this incredible career path. Here's a video on Franchise Day.
Come on now. Say listen up, y'all, 'cause I've got something to say.
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. In our top stories this morning, Zambian president replaces army and police chiefs. Zambia's new president, Hakainde Hichilema, has replaced the country's top military commander and the head of police and signaled a focus on security forces being more accountable to citizens. The president late on Sunday announced new commanders of the Zambian Army, the Air Force and the National Service and their deputies, as well as a new Inspector General of Police. All regional police commissioners have been relieved of their duties, but their replacements have not been named. Mr. Hichilema said the new office bearers must have the interest of the people at heart and serve the country diligently while ensuring human rights, freedom, and liberties are respected. He said the police must carry out proper checks before detaining suspects and that no one should be arrested before investigations are concluded. Mr. Hichilema, who was voted as president earlier this month in a landslide victory, has been a victim of police brutality in the past.
All right, in our second story, malaria vaccine combination treatment could cut illness by 70%. A 3-year trial giving the RTSS malaria vaccine in combination with anti-malarial drugs to young children has been found to reduce illness and death by 70% compared with using other treatments alone. The trial involved enrolling 6,000 children aged under 17 months in a double-blind randomized controlled trial in Burkina Faso and Mali and was led by the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. It gave 3 doses of the RTSS vaccine and anti-malarial drugs timed to take effect before the beginning of the malarial season. A booster jab was given before the following rainy seasons. Other trials in Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi have shown that the vaccine is effective, but that its protection wanes within months. The authors of the current study therefore suggest that RTSS could be used as a seasonal vaccine. RTSS was created by GlaxoSmithKline over 20 years ago, and early trials were undertaken at the Manica Health Research Center in northern Mozambique. Last year, the Health Ministry recorded 563 deaths, a 23% reduction on the previous year. However, malaria remains a major public health problem. According to government statistics, between January and August 2020, there were 8.36 million cases.
Displaced people start returning home. Rwandan and Mozambican forces on Saturday, 28th of August, started helping hundreds of people who are displaced by the IS-linked terrorists in Mozambique's northernmost province of Cabo Delgado return to their homes. The first batch of refugees, 684 people, headed to their homes in Palma district. They were helped to evacuate from the vast camp of internally displaced people in Quituda village. The camp, which is near Afugi port, has been home to more than 10,000 people. In the entire province, more than 820,000 were displaced by insurgency. The process of helping people return to their home region has started in the IDP in Quituda, but it will also be done in other areas of the province. The joint forces escorted the returnees to their homes and are also going to continue ensuring their security.
In Malawi, Lazarus Chakwera says corruption retards development. President Lazarus Chakwera has said his administration will continue to stand firm against corruption, faulting the vice for retarding national socio-economic development efforts. The president said this yesterday in Lilongwe during the farewell ceremony of Reverend Winston Kawale, who has served Nkoma Synod for 40 years. People should learn to take care of one another if the country is to move forward. The country is losing a lot of lives, not only through COVID. There is a lot of work to do in dealing with corruption in the country. On this one, we must work together and report the vice always, Chakwera said. In his sermon, Kawale said a multi-sectoral approach was key to addressing problems that come about due to corruption. Hundreds of people attended the retirement ceremony, which was marked by prayers, singing, gift sharing, and speeches. Kawale held myriad positions in Nkoma Synod, including that of General Secretary from 2001 to 2007.
In Eswatini, people are saying we are bitter at security personnel. We have so much anger and resentment against security personnel and can't stand them following the shootings. These were the sentiments shared by some of the survivors of the June-July unrest that saw some Emaswati allegedly being shot by security forces. The survivors are now attending counseling sessions made possible by Eswatini Solidarity Fund. According to survivors, they were taken aback every time they came across security personnel, especially because the shootings had great impacts on their lives. When we come across a roadblock and there are security personnel, we come out of the car to tell them that we now have a disability because of them and do not want to be reminded of the episode, said the survivors who said a survivor who had his leg amputated.
Now in DR Congo, government silence worries about humanitarian disaster caused by ADF in Irumu. More than 17,000 displaced people have flocked to the Irumu territory, local civil society warned. These displaced people are fleeing their homes in the region of Chabi and Boga almost every day because of the atrocities of the ADF rebels. Daniel Masumbuko, vice president of the local civil society, is worried about the silence of the Congolese government in the face of this humanitarian tragedy. During his visit to Bunia, the Prime Minister had a working session with humanitarian workers on the situation of displaced people in Ituri. However, nothing was said of the government's position in the face of this humanitarian situation. Civil society and some political actors in Ituri fear that this situation will create a food crisis in the region.
Fight is far from over, says Kama. Despite the court dismissing charges in the 100 billion Pula money laundering case that implicated him, former President Ian Khama says he has been made aware that after his loss in court, the current regime is trying to discredit and embarrass him with fake news. Kama was implicated in a case in which former Directorate of Intelligence and Security agent Wilhelmina Maswabi was charged with financing terrorism, possession of unexplained property, and false declaration of a passport. Justice Zain Kebonang and the Gaborone High Court recently acquitted Maswabi of all charges. Kama now claims that the issue is far from over, as the current regime led by President Mokgweetsi Masisi plans to pay individuals to make false revelations about him. In an interview with Mengi on Wednesday evening, Kama added that all those who plan to discredit him would never succeed. He was implicated alongside South African businesswoman Bridget Motsepe Radebe without having been cited in the case as a defendant. Kama and Motsepe Radebe last year went as far as enlisting an international firm, Omnia Strategy, headed by the UK barrister Cherry Blair, to prove their innocence.
In our next story, Eswatini rated 11th out of 94 for unemployment. The current percentage of unemployed people in the country is 23.4%. The challenge with unemployment has been constant with each year in the kingdom, and statistics published by Trading Economics revealed that the country was 11th out of 94 countries and the 4th in the Southern Africa Development Community in terms of unemployment rate. To curb the spread of COVID-19, governments including Eswatini had to impose restrictions that limited trade, thus forcing certain sectors out of activity. Mkhalipi said following this, government had initiated programs that would lure foreign direct investments into the country. There was also an eruption of deadly riots in June and July, which saw many businesses being looted, vandalized, and burnt. The unrest cost the country about 3 billion emalangeni in damages and placed at least 5,000 people jobless, according to the then acting Prime Minister Themba Masuku.
Zaire needs 2,000 teachers. About 2,000 new teachers are needed in the province of Zaire to fill vacancies at the schools and incorporate more than 25,000 children from outside the normal education system in this academic year of 2021 to 2022. The director of the Provincial Office of Education, Science and Technology, Jose Louis Amalia, considered the shortage of teachers as one of the main concerns of the sector. In 2018, 378 agents were hired for teaching, and in the following year, another 1,000. He also regretted the fact that the project to build 12 schools has been experiencing considerable delays, and only 2 of these institutions were inaugurated. As of for the academic year of 2021 to 2022, which is about to start, Jose Amalia said that there is a forecast to enroll a total of 223,000 students in the teaching subsystem. These students will have classes provided by 5,482 teachers.
DRC, the water of Kasai River returns to its usual color, testifies some inhabitants. The water in the Kasai River has just returned to its normal color after a few weeks, and the corpses of fish are no longer visible on the surface, said residents of the few villages bordering Idiofa territory. According to these sources, some people are even starting to use river water without waiting for permission, ACP wrote. However, it should be noted that the Territorial Authority of Idiofa had prohibited the inhabitants of this part of the country, in particular Mangae, Dibaya Lubwe, Panu, Yolo, from consuming this unsuitable water. It should be noted that this water from the Kasai River had taken on the color red after the pollution caused by certain toxic materials coming from Angola.
In Mozambique, the government is committed to produce zero carbon natural gas. Mozambique's Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, Max Tonela, reiterated that the country is committed to exporting carbon-free natural gas using technologies which curb pollutant emission by oil companies. The government has decided to embark on a gas decarbonization process. Although we have a gas that already has a small emission content, we are prioritizing the use of pre-existing decarbonization technologies, Minister Tonela said. Max Tonela said that Mozambican natural gas has little polluting content and will be decisive in deactivating coal-fired power stations in southern Africa and elsewhere in the context of reducing carbon dioxide emission.
In the last of our top stories, cold front causes rare snowfall in South Africa. Cold front lashes Western Cape before moving to other parts of South Africa, bringing snowfall and fierce winds. An intense cold front associated with a steep upper air trough hit the western parts of the country, said the South African Weather Service. Widespread rainfall is also expected over the western parts of the Western Cape. This will spread to the western and southern parts of Northern Cape. This rainfall will lead to flooding in informal settlements and could pose a risk to motorists' ability to drive safely. When the cold front hit the province in July, the city of Cape Town said that because of COVID-19 health and safety measures, it was hampered from providing shelter for informal settlements affected by the flooding. The Weather Service also warned that there would be freezing levels over the Western Cape and parts of the Northern Cape. As a result of this, snowfall accumulation of between 5 centimeters and 10 centimeters is expected in the high-lying areas of the Cape Winelands, Garden Route, Central Karoo, and the southern and western parts of the Namakwa district in the Northern Cape. Sorry, Namakwa, I hope that does not affect the wine production. Just wondering. All right, this is 2 Africa. Good morning. We have certainly more important news for you right after the break. Now, this week we have been following the dynamics between the relations of nature and man. Yesterday we spoke about human beings and lions, and today we move over to elephants. Now, Elephant Human Relations Aid, or ERA in short, cultivates an extensive approach to desert elephant conservation in Namibia. They apply practical solutions to conflict-affected areas through several initiatives such as water point conservation on local farms, vehicle-based patrols to track and monitor elephants, and community development as well as upliftment to help promote a positive relationship between elephants and humans in Namibia. Let's have a look at what they do.
ERA aims to solve elephant-human conflict through practical and realistic solutions. We aim to empower people with the knowledge they need to stay safe if elephants visit, and also give them practical help with infrastructure to stop elephants from causing damage. By doing this, the aim is to have a situation where people accept living with elephants, and that in turn will help us have a harmonious situation for everybody. The Water Point Protection Programme involves the volunteers very heavily, and they are the main manpower for building these very large stone walls around water points. The idea is that the elephants can still access the water to drink if there's a dam there, but they just can't get inside and break pipes or put tusks inside water tanks. and basically cause the farmer, a lot of trouble and put his life basically at risk. That's all done by hand. It's really hard, sweaty work, but we are managing to do about 2 protection walls a month, and we're slowly working our way through all of the Kunini and Orongo region. So that makes a massive difference, just takes a big problem away. The second thing that we do also with the volunteers is the elephant ID and movement studies. So we believe really strongly that we must know each and every elephant that we have in the area, that helps us manage them better, that we understand their personalities, that we know where they're moving. If they are going to make a new movement, perhaps there'll be farms that are living without protection walls that we need to hand out application forms. And then taking the identification photos. We take the photos of the left and the right side. The tails are all quite interesting with different hair on each one, so that's differs between each and every elephant, and obviously a body shot and a head shot, so we can clearly see who's who. The other project we do is the Peace Project. This is a training program on elephant behaviour for people who are living with elephants, so community members, also for game guards and conservancy members, so they're people that are responsible for tracking elephants and providing information to the conservancies and the government. We also go into schools and do talks on safety for the children that are living there. Our partner school has the elephants close by most months of the year, even inside the school, so it's quite a dangerous situation. And lastly, we do tour guide training, and that's really important as well for anyone working in the area doing game drives, that they understand not to go too close to the elephants, that perhaps an upset elephant might later go through a small village or into the school and it might still be angry, and that causes a problem then for people living with elephants. We have a schools program where schools from overseas, they can partner with one of our schools that we're working with here. Most of the projects involve some kind of renovation work. It could be painting dormitories, painting classrooms, fixing toilets and shower blocks. We've also provided computers and libraries. So anything really that the school needs that we can add and help the Ministry of Education provide to those schools. ERA's volunteer programme is a very hands-on conservation experience for people. I think our programme is very much suited to somebody that's quite interested in conservation, that believes in actually doing something that they can see that they've made a contribution. So the walls, it's a brilliant feeling, I think, for people to see that, yes, it's hard work, but they can instantly see that that solves a problem. And that is what conservation is actually about. It's about solving a problem in a very practical way.
Rachel Harris is a representative of the Wildlife Conservation Initiative known as Elephant-Human Relations Aid. We'll be talking to her later on the show, just in a minute. But first, let's take a look at who Rachel Harris is.
I'm Rachel Harris, and I am the Director of Elephant-Human Relations Aid, which was started in 2003 to try and help people living in this area with elephant-human conflict. When we first started, and I think this is why our school project is so important, the school there is such a big part of the community. So I think they saw from the beginning that, the intent that we came with was to really try and help, and expecting nothing in return. And I think they just got to know us over quite a long period of time. We've been helping that school for 14, 15 years. So I think they understand that I don't just come and then go and they don't see me again. I'll keep coming and they can call for help, and I think I've shown to them and determination to try and make it a bit better. So yeah, I have a community down there. I know I'm accepted by them, and yeah, we're friends, and that's really important, I think, personally.
Maya Angelou has a poem titled Phenomenal Woman. I think it aptly describes Rachel. Good morning, Rachel. How are you? Welcome to Africa Good Morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're fantastic. It's good to have you here. Now, of course, we did watch the clip on you, but let's talk a bit about you. Could you tell us how long have you been involved in what you do in Namibia, particularly for the local elephant population?
Yeah, so I've been here since I was 26. So I've actually been here now since 2004. And originally, you can still hear the accent hasn't gone anywhere. I'm from the UK, and I worked for a big charity there, fundraising mostly, actually a big children's charity. And I came to Namibia through work, in fact, and yeah, and fell in love with the place and met my then husband, and we started ERA together. He'd already, in fact, started it. And at that point, then I could see, what I could do over here, and I had some experience, and I thought, yeah, let me give it a go and see what living on the other side of the world is like.
All right. Now, we recently received such bad news about the desert-adapted lions in Namibia. What is the situation like for the unique desert-adapted elephants?
Yeah, for the desert elephants, yeah, life is tough and numbers are really low. The government has recognised that some of the herds further north in the Juaneb area, they're actually now going to get a protected status because their numbers are now so few. And the same for the elephants where we work a bit further south of the Kunini, in the northern Orongo region, around the Ukab River. In particular, the Ukab River, when we started, their numbers were about 36, 37, and we're down to 21 today. And just about all of those deaths have been caused from elephant-human conflict. There's only been a few natural deaths we know about. So it's a difficult situation. And what compounds that is that the calf mortality for the Ukab elephants in particular stands at 100% at the moment. So since 2014, we know of 10 baby elephants that have been born, and none of them have survived. They will die within the first few days of birth. So, there's a lot of different things going on with climate change, the droughts, the loss of habitat for elephants as well. They're suddenly in areas where people are, and trying to get that balance right for people and elephants to coexist is a real challenge for the government and for NGOs like us.
Understandably so. Now, for that matter, what is the state of conservation efforts with regards to elephants in Namibia?
Yeah, so the government has a really good, proactive elephant management plan, which was decided upon at the end of last year. And I think that's going to make a massive difference. It looks at elephant populations in the city. So rather than force decisions down, which maybe won't be all relevant, it looks at decision making that's taking place, from all the stakeholders on the ground where the populations are. The elephants in the Caprivi region, for instance, they need to be managed differently to the desert elephants in the so each area needs a mitigation strategy that's tailored towards their needs. And I think that's going to make a massive difference for the effectiveness of conservation in Namibia. And the fact is, if people aren't okay with the elephants, then the elephants don't stand a chance, really. So we really need to look at what mitigation methods can we do that's going to help people accept living with an elephant. What's the main problem? Is it that the water points aren't protected? Are they paying money for diesel, which isn't fair? Why should you pay for diesel for elephants to come and drink if you haven't got much money yourself? So looking at new technologies like solar water pumps, that's another project we're doing at the moment. And education is also such a huge factor, making sure that people are empowered, that they know how to live with elephants, that they're not scared. I think none of us should have to be in a situation where we're living in fear every day, and that also makes you intolerant, doesn't it? So yeah, it's positive.
All right, now for a number of years now, we've heard that the governments of Namibia and Botswana are applying to SCITES to allow the cull elephants herd in order to control their numbers and feed the existing demand of ivory. Now, what is your take on this, and how would you propose that the numbers remain within a reasonable size and that can be carried and managed by these countries?
Well, as I said, the main problem is loss of habitat for elephants, and that compounded with climate change as well. So we've seen, even with the Ukab elephants, that are just a small number, as I said, over the last 2 years, they've travelled to an area east, much further north up the Uhab River, which they haven't done previously. You know, we actually lost them for a period of a couple of months. And during that time that they were gone, then they found themselves on commercial farms. And this is where the challenge is really so great, I think, for the government here in Namibia at the moment, is, you know, how do we manage that? What is the mitigation for people who are, you know, having fences and expensive cattle and game inside? And an elephant can obviously easily just trample a fence, you know, very quickly. And so there's massive conflict there. And, you know, elephants obviously have been in Namibia for longer than we've been living in some of these areas, especially the farmlands. But a lot of farmers bought farms before elephants were there. But it's I think it's climate change and loss of habitat that's forcing elephants to move. So I think one big project, and I'm sure people have heard about the word of an elephant corridor, and that looks at opening up these migratory routes that elephants traditionally using some science as well. You know, there's a lot of collared elephants that give you information on their movements, that you can see where did the elephants want to go and why are they going there. You know, is it vegetation, is it water, and then from that you can then, you know, model what can corridor look like, and they're used really successfully in other countries. You know, even stopping elephants.
Sorry, Rachel. Unfortunately, we need to cut you off there. But thank you so much for joining us and disseminating that important information.
No problem. Thank you very much.
All right, that was Rachel Harris, the representative of the Wildlife Conservation Initiative, known as Elephant Human Relations Aid. I love Africa. Good morning.
Yeah.
You're always going to know everything that's happening on these beautiful lands. Next up, we'll take a short break. Welcome back to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show, bringing you everything you need to know happening in the SADC region and beyond. Right now, we're going to take a trip to Zimbabwe and have a chat with Ms. Talent Gore as she brings us the news on the ground. Good morning, Talent. How are you?
Good morning, Ash. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Now, let's get straight into the first story. Government says they are constructing flats and houses for demolition victims. Could you tell us about this?
Well, the Zimbabwean government has said that they have started the construction of blocks of flats and houses for over 30,000 families who were affected by demolitions earlier this year. They said that they have already started with the building and they are targeting that by the end of this year, some of the flats and houses would have been completed. Government said that the Ministry of Finance Treasury had availed 1 billion Zimbabwean dollars for the construction of these flats, and also they were currently helping the families who are worst affected by giving them relief aids, such as they have constructed or they have put up across campsites for them to stay in for the meantime up until the houses are finally completed. The government also said that 31,257 families were worst affected by the demolitions, and they are working tirelessly to make sure that by the end of this year, some of the families would have would have been put inside the houses which the government is actually construction. And this government also said that the construction was going proper, and soon the families would have been put in the houses and flats which the government is currently building.
All right, now schools are reopening and there is also a hike in school fees. Please tell us more.
Schools in Zimbabwe have been reopened, and they started reopening for the school examination classes. So apparently the O levels and A levels are the ones who are going to school at the moment, and some of the students, they are going back to school next week. So the schools have been opened in batches. So parents have been complaining that the government ambushed them, given that they were only given 4 days for them to raise school fees and other things that the students and pupils might need for school. So there was an 33% increase fees hike, and the parents are complaining that the government of ambushing them, as they were only given 4 days to raise fees and related cost of the new term. The permanent secretary in the primary and secondary education said that this was necessary because for this term the students are going to be at school for 80 days other than the usual 60 days. So they said that they are going to be at school for more days other than the usual. So there was a need for them to increase the school fees.
School fees, all right. Now, in the last of your stories, talent transport crisis in Zimbabwe is now a security threat. Could you get into that briefly?
Well, Passengers Association of Zimbabwe have called on the parliament to intervene with the issue of the transport crisis in Zimbabwe. They said that the country's worsening public transport situation had resulted in the commuters falling victims to mugging, sexual harassment, and robbery after disembarking late for buses. The government banned the use of public transport when they imposed the first lockdown last year, and they have since introduced the Zimbabwe United Passenger Company Transport, but that alone is not enough to cater for all the people who use public transport. So we have seen that most people are falling victims to mugging, and rape cases are on the rise due to this transport situation. So the Passengers Association of Zimbabwe has called on the parliament to at least intervene so that they can at least bring back a commuter omnibus public transport for the public to use, other than for them to continue using private cars, which they do not know whom they belong to, because most of these cars, they are robbers, and so they have called on the parliament to intervene.
Sounds like a truly unsafe situation. We hope that can be quashed as soon as possible. Thank you very much, Talent, for bringing us the news from Zimbabwe.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
It's always good having you on Africa Good Morning, where we continue to bring you the news and the current affairs. Next up, weather.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now, Andre Snyman, who is the Managing Director of the Walvis Bay Salt Holding, talks about the new BPS Smart Truck Commission at the salt mine to enhance transport efficiency. And here is more on that.
Okay, with me here is Andre Snyman, who is the Managing Director of Walvis Bay Salt Holdings. Now, Mr. Snyman, you and Walvis Bay Salt Holdings and Unitrans recently collaborated, and you now have some smart trucks in your possession. Please tell us about the smart trucks.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. In our business, in the salt business, logistics optimization is really of high importance, and it is quite important to be able to drop your cost of transport at all times. We have investigated the possibility of a pipeline to pump the salt from us, our salt mine, to the port, because most of our salt is then exported internationally, but that pipeline proved to be too expensive, although it was technically possible. At the moment, for that reason, we then partnered with Unitrans for this new trucks, and the new trucks has got a payload of 65 tons per truck. If you compare it with our current trucks that we used, that was in the order of 34 tons per truck. So the biggest benefit with this bigger payload is the reduced costs. So we were able to drop our cost of transportation due to economy of scale benefits, and associated with that there are some other benefits, such as the reduced noise levels, there are less spillage on the roads, and less nuisance, because many of our trucks has to pass many of the guest houses and a certain area of the suburb on the way to the port, and we felt if there are less trips, there will be less nuisance as well. So we're looking forward. It is our strategy to grow the business even further, and we feel by embracing new technology such as this new PBS trucks, that will be the right strategy going forward.
Awesome. Now, how many trucks were commissioned?
We have commissioned in total 6 of this new, what they call PBS trucks.
Awesome. And then the drivers were obviously trained as well?
All the drivers are well trained by Unitrans, which is a well-known Namibian transporting company. I have to just point out that the trucks that we're using were constructed by a sister company of us with the name Afrit in South Africa. So they are part of the same group, because we all are part of the BUD group in South Africa, and they are a sister company of ours.
Cool. So like a very nice collaboration between everyone.
Correct.
And then just finally, Mr. Snyman, is there any more exciting plans up the sleeve of Walvis Bay Salt Holdings?
We always look for new innovative ways to grow. We look at ways and means how we can beneficiate our waste stream. We're working on that. And then we look consistently at ways and means to be more efficient in whatever we do. I just need to thank the municipality of Walvis Bay and also the Roads Authority of Namibia for their involvement in making this project a big success.
Yeah, because I know you also sponsored the new, specifically the road where the trucks turn. Just tell us about that as well.
There is one area in town, or it is a crossing where there's high traffic.
Yes.
And there's also quite a bit where our trucks are turning in town. And over years, that area is got quite damaged. So we felt it is the right thing to do to redo the crossing with paving. We got an engineering company that did the design for us and the correct thickness of brick, and we are sure that that crossing will be able to last for much longer.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Snyman.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. It's time for us to get into your economic news stories for the day. And we start off in Angola as PAPE already created more than 22,000 jobs. The action plan for the promotion of employability has created more than 22,000 direct jobs throughout the country. Leonel Bernardo stressed that the goal is to benefit 42,000 people with work. Since the program's relaunch in September 2020, it created 22,922 jobs across the country, he said. PAPE is a nationwide program which aims to encourage and support the spirit of initiative entrepreneurs, mainly young people and women, to value professions through the attribution of professional portfolios and to provide internship opportunities for young people who have recently graduated from various centers of technical professional training, he said.
In our next story, BERA considers a BPC's 5% tariff increase request. The Botswana Energy Regulatory Authority will soon decide on whether or not to grant the Botswana Power Corporation a 5% tariff increase. The decision will be informed by suggestions, comments, and consultations at the BERA and the BPC having been hosting. The corporation requested BERA last year together with a proposal for another 5% increase in the 2022 to 2023 and yet another 4% in 2023 to 2024.
In our next story, budget outlook weakens as forecast deficit rises up to 7.8 billion pula in Botswana. The country's budget deficit this year is now expected to reach 7.75 billion pula, up from the 6.03 billion pula originally forecast in February, as additional spending on COVID-19 and lower than projected revenues weigh on fiscus. Finance and Economic Development Minister Peggy Serame made the latest revisions of the forecast deficit recently when requesting Parliament to approve a $250 million loan secured from the World Bank. The latest domestic outlook, which was positive at the time of the budget in March 2021, has weakened due to the impact of COVID-19 and the associated restrictions of movements as part of efforts to control the spread of the disease, she said. The outbreak of the Delta variant in the country has driven cases up to 1,500 per day recently, with deaths reaching 573 in July from 121 in January and just 21 in December 2020. Government has stepped up its effort to procure and distribute vaccines, while the worsening pandemic has also raised the costs of isolation, quarantine, and other public healthcare related resources.
In our next story, credit must be used under the criterion of sustainability. Economists Rui Marques and Antonio Estot, contacted by the Journal de Angola to comment on the disbursement of $1 million US dollars by the MIF to Angola, said these funds should be used in order to generate gains in economic sustainability. Antonio Estot said that the amount should be allocated to projects or expenses that gives the executive safe freedom to leave the debt cycle in which the country finds itself. He said it is preferable that the amount be applied to early repayment of debt because the debt service has absorbed a significant part of expenses in the general state budget.
That brings us to the end of our economic news stories for today. You know what comes up next? Economic indicators. Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. It's time for us to get into your sports news stories. In our first story, we are in Lesotho as Mehala Litowe to miss COSAFA tourney. The Lesotho Football Association has opted against registering the country's national women's teams in international competitions for the rest of the year due to a lack of preparations caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. LEFA's decision means the senior team Mehala Litowe will not take part in this year's COSAFA Women's Championship scheduled to start in September in South Africa, immediately after the COSAFA Women's Champions League. Sport in Lesotho remains suspended, and there is no way international teams can train or even play friendly matches to prepare. LEFA said it is wary of sending an unprepared team to the COSAFA Women's Championship, as it did last year when Mehala Litowe received a hiding of their lives against Malawi and Zambia at the tournament, losing 9-0 and 8-0 respectively. It remains to be seen if LEFA will register the team next year if circumstances change.
In our next story, Verstappen wins rain-ruined two-lap Belgian GP. Red Bull's Max Verstappen emerged as the winner of the rain-ruined Belgium Grand Prix with only 2 laps completed behind a safety car at a drenched and dangerous Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Pole-sitter Verstappen was awarded half points, which moved him to within 3 points of Lewis Hamilton in the Drivers' Championship after the shortest race in Formula One's history. Williams' George Russell took the second with Hamilton's Mercedes in third after the 12th round of the season, all 14 kilometers of it. Organizers finally gave the go-ahead for a rolling start behind a safety car at 18:30 local time, 3.5 hours after the scheduled time, which was 1500 hours start.
Now at the Paralympics, records tumble from pool to track. China's youngest Paralympian broke her own world record in the pool in Tokyo on Monday, a day after Norwegian former refugee Salum Ageze Kashafali ran the fastest Paralympic game 100 meters in history. Records have been falling on a daily basis at the Tokyo Games, and Norway's Kashafali on Sunday became the fastest 100-meter runner in Paralympic history when he crossed the line in 10.46 seconds in the T12 final. The Norwegian fled the civil war in the Democratic Republic of Congo with his family as a child and took up athletics as a teenager in his new home. He has vision impairment as a result of a congenital condition and has also competed with non-disabled runners. I have been through so much, from bullets to hunger, and to be here as one of the best means a lot to me, Kashafali said. Love it.
Love to hear it. Ronaldo completes medical ahead of Man United move. Cristiano Ronaldo completed a medical in Lisbon over the weekend ahead of his return to Manchester United, and he has agreed personal terms on a 2-year contract with the Premier League club. United said last week they had agreed a deal to re-sign Ronaldo from Juventus after he told the Series A club he had no intention of staying, but the transfer was still subject to the agreement of personal terms and a medical. The clubs have yet to confirm the Portugal forwards transfer. The Premier League summer transfer window closes on Tuesday. Now, Sky reported the fee agreed for the 36-year-old Portuguese was around 15 million euros plus a further 8 million euros in add-ons.
Now, in the last of our sports news stories, Osaka in spotlight as US Open begins. Naomi Osaka launches her bid for a 3rd US Open title in 4 years on Monday, aiming to put turmoil behind her as she chases her 2nd Grand Slam title of 2021. Osaka, who rocketed to fame when she beat superstar Serena Williams in the 2018 US Open final, appeared set for a sparkling 2021 campaign after she beat American Jen Brady in the Australian Open final in February to capture her 4th major crown. But she has played sparingly since, pulling out of the French Open after she was fined for failing to meet mandatory media requirements. Recently, I've been asking myself, why do I feel the way I do? And I realized one of the reasons is because internally, I think I'm never good enough, she wrote. I never tell myself that I've done a good job, but I do know I constantly tell myself that I suck or I could do better. Osaka has already acknowledged that it will take some adjusting after last year's spectator ban to adjust to return of the fans to the 23,771-seat Arthur Ashe Stadium. Crowds at the normally rowdy Open will be back at full capacity, although organizers announced last week that all attendees will be required to provide proof of having received at least one COVID-19 vaccination. Let's see how it goes. This is still Africa Good Morning. If you didn't get a chance to catch the top stories, worry not. Your headlines will be back after the break. Africa Good Morning has been streaming live from 7 a.m., bringing you news and current affairs from the SADC region and obviously from beyond. Please check out our headlines up next from our top stories. Zambian president replaces army and police chiefs. Malaria vaccine combination treatment could cut illness by 70%. Cabo Delgado, displaced people start returning home. Lazarus Chakwera says corruption retards development. PAPE already created more than 22,000 jobs in Angola. Mehala Litoe to Miss Kosafa Turney. Those have been our stories.
We thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Africa Good Morning. We do welcome your remarks regarding our show. Our email is agm_2centsworth@nmh.com.na. That is where you can send your remarks to. Alternatively, we are on Facebook and Twitter. It's at Africa Good Morning. We also have a website. It's called the One Up 2. Please visit us on there to check out all NMH's shows. On that regard, is all our love and all our light.
Until tomorrow, Swela Zakanaka.